In early 2020, a sudden unprecedented human crisis swept the world. COVID-19. It was a sudden attack on humanity. Over the next several months, millions of lives and livelihoods were lost. People were caught in the lurch. Cut to early 2022. After a grueling 24 months, the world finally heaved a sigh of relief and started breathing again. Life started getting back to normal, and people felt confident enough to go about their business again. What happened in the interim? What led to this transformation? The answer: the COVID-19 vaccine. At a time when people were desperately looking for answers, governments, medical professionals, scientists and pharma companies knew there was only one way out: develop a vaccine on a war footing. Across the world, immunologists, microbiologists, protein chemists, research institutes, process engineers, national and provincial governments, doctors and other medical professionals collaborated on a global scene to make this a reality. The COVID-19 vaccine was a lifeline for humanity. Vaccines have a long history of helping prevent several illnesses: smallpox, polio, rabies, influenza, hepatitis A, rotavirus, ebola, COVID-19. Humankind has been able to fight off these and other illnesses by developing effective vaccines for them. Which is why the vaccine is a miracle of modern medicine. Vaccines reduce the risk of humans getting a disease by shoring up the body's natural defenses against that disease. Immunization is a global health and development success story, saving millions of lives every year. We now have vaccines to prevent more than 20 life-threatening diseases, helping people of all ages live longer and healthier.
Vaccination is the most effective and economical healthcare interventions after clean drinking water, considering the developments that happened around it and the number of lives saved. For example, the large number of lives saved because of neonatal immunization and pediatric immunizations. Today, we possibly don't remember 14 of the diseases. Polio and smallpox are two of them. The credit goes to immunizations at the early childhood.
In the simplest sense, this is how a vaccine works when administered to you. It introduces a weak or dead form of the germ into your body. This sparks your immune response to develop antibodies that remember the germ. The antibodies fight off the germ if it invades your body again. But not all vaccines work the same way.
So in a normal disease scenario, when you fall sick, our body produces antibody, and these antibodies gives us protection. Vaccination exactly does the same thing. When vaccination happens, it actually evokes the same kind of immune response that happens in a disease scenario. The only difference is it does not cause the disease. A vaccine could be inactivated or attenuated, but fundamentally it does the same thing. Once it gets into the body, it does not cause the disease, but evokes an immune response, producing an antibody that is protective enough to prevent us from falling sick again.
You may be wondering, how do the scientific and research communities know when to start developing a vaccine?
Vaccine development starts when the need is identified and understood. There are 4 different ways a vaccine development can happen. Either there is huge disease burden that existed in the society and there is continuous effort to develop a vaccine for it. For example, dengue or malaria. Or there could be a sheer curiosity by a scientist to understand the biology and pathogenesis of a disease, and that led to discovery of a new vaccine candidate. Or it could be a situation where there was no funding available. There was disease burden, but there was no funding available, and today there is funding. That's why there is a development program happens for vaccines. Or it could be an outbreak situations like COVID-19, where an immediate solution need to be found. And there are 4 different ways that a vaccine can be developed.
A vaccine is a dose of good health. But contrary to medicines, it is given to a healthy individual.
Vaccines is always given to healthy individuals. And people take vaccines with an understanding that they will remain protected. It is very easy to convince someone when the person is sick that you need to take a medicine and you will recover. But in case of vaccines, it is always given to healthy individuals when you are not sick. So you need to believe that you will remain protected, and then only you will be willing to take the vaccines. In a way, it is like when you go out driving a car, you wear a seatbelt, or when you are driving a bike, you wear a helmet, or you are buying a life insurance just in case there could be life exigencies. In the same way, vaccines offer you that safety blanket of protecting your life. Vaccines can do three things. It can reduce disease burden, it can reduce severity of the disease, and most importantly, it saves your life. Very, very important to understand. Vaccine actually saves life.
Developing a vaccine is a detailed, highly scientific and painstaking process that usually takes years. For that reason, it is also a fascinating process.
It took very long time earlier to develop any vaccines, primarily because the technology was not very well developed and advanced. It took a lot of time for scientists to do multiple experiments to figure out how to develop a vaccine, how to make it work. 40 years, that's the time frame that it took for developing a vaccines for malaria or dengue. But if you look at a COVID situations and a pandemic situations, a vaccine got developed and rolled out to market less than 1 year time. This is nothing short of a miracle. That's primarily possible because of a very collaborative way the global resources were mobilized in one direction.
Developing a vaccine is a complex, multi-layered process. The layperson sees only the white-coated medical professional who administers the vaccine to them. But beyond this simple jab lies a multi-pronged effort involving many people with specialized skills and knowledge. Indeed, it takes an entire community to develop a single vaccine.
To develop a vaccine, we need multiple disciplines to come together in a very integrated manner. And each and every discipline has a unique role to play. Imagine a situation of an early R&D development. A scientist is trying to establish a proof of concept for a vaccine. You need multiple skill sets. You need a microbiologist who understands the biology and pathogenesis of the disease. You need an immunologist who understands what exactly happens when the vaccine is injected to a lab animal. You need someone who can handle the laboratory animals. You need a protein chemist or a biochemist who understand the chemistry of the protein. You need a biophysicist who possibly understands the crystal structure of the protein. And all of these is required just at the early R&D phase. At a higher level, you need an analytical chemist who understands and analyzes the vaccine that is developed. You need a process scientist or a chemical engineer who actually scales the process that is developed at the early R&D stage to manufacturing scale. Once the process is at full scale, you need to control the process. And once the product is manufactured at a GMP scale, you need doctors who will do the field evaluation of the vaccine, what we call human clinical trials. All these different skill sets are required to come together collaboratively to develop one vaccine. There are other aspects to vaccine development. You need immense amount of instrumentation. There are companies out there who design, develop, validate, and manufacture equipments and make them available to scientists to be used in the journey of vaccine discovery. It is something like ordering a food using an app. When we order a food through an app, we only think about a restaurant. But there are a lot of things that goes behind which we don't know or we don't pay attention to. There is somebody who is actually growing the food and making it available to restaurant. Somebody is processing the food and cooking it for us. And then someone is actually packaging it and delivering to us. all that combined together, making that experience of enjoying the food on our table. In the same way, there are a lot that goes behind making a vaccine available in the market that ultimately gives you the protection from the disease.
But that's only half the story. The best of vaccines is no good if it remains in the lab or manufacturing unit. It has to be brought to hospitals and medical camps, thereby reaching the people who need it. Before a vaccine is administered to the public, it has to be rigorously tested.
So there are two kinds of testing in the journey of vaccine development. One at the early R&D stage and the second one at the manufacturing. At the early R&D stage, there are two options. Either you keep the testing in-house, that means you need to have necessary instrumentations and competent people available. Or the other option is to outsource the testing to a third party. When you outsource the testing to third party, they could be faster and much quicker in terms of testing because they have possibly the competent people, infrastructure and resources because they do that routinely for many other clients. When it comes to manufacturing, most of the time the regulatory expectation is to keep the testing in-house. Whether to outsource or keep the testing in-house primarily depends on cost-benefit analysis. Another important aspect of vaccine development and making it available and accessible to people is distribution. There is a tremendous amount of work that goes behind. You require warehousing and huge amount of coordination in maintaining cold chain so that the vaccine can be made available to the right people in the right time in the safe and efficacious manner.
Every vaccine has a shelf life and an expiry date. So, once it is released by the manufacturer, it goes into the cold chain, which ensures that it is maintained at the requisite temperature. Several doses of vaccines go to a center where they are stockpiled. From there, they are distributed to a regional distribution center. From there, they go to the hospitals and medical camps, where they are administered to the public. The supplies are tracked using software every step of the way. This entails a lot of data maintenance and analytics. Since efforts are on globally to develop vaccines for several major illnesses and conditions, there is a growing need for people with diverse backgrounds and skill sets in this field.
To develop a vaccine, we need people with higher degrees or postgraduates because this is a higher level of work. All these people need to come together and work in an integrated manner to develop a vaccine. You need biologists, microbiologists, biochemists, immunologists, mathematicians, statisticians. You need computer applications, big data analytics. You need people who will take and crunch the data and integrate them together. You need people with supply chain background. You need people in sales, in marketing, in cold chain, intellectual property and law and many, many more. And all those things is just to develop one vaccines. Gone are those days where just one player can make vaccines themselves. Today we are living in a very decentralized world, and so do the vaccine development. And all these people with higher skills and specialization need to come together, work together to make a vaccine a success.
Given the way multiple stakeholders came together swiftly to develop, manufacture and distribute it, the COVID-19 vaccine perhaps signals a fundamental shift in the way vaccines will be developed. This could be a turning point in the history of modern medicine. The global medical and academic fraternities are constantly on the quest to develop more vaccines and improve their effectiveness. As technology advances and as we expand our collective frontier of knowledge, we continue to invent better and more cost-effective methods of vaccine delivery too. Vaccine development and delivery is one of the most exciting and promising fields to work in. More and more skilled professionals from various disciplines are joining this field. Apart from exciting opportunities for career growth, it gives them a unique opportunity to fuel human progress and be part of medical history.
The world of vaccine continues to do what it does the best: give humanity a new lease of health and a new lease of life.